right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whenever you might be listening to this podcast of Through a Therapist's Eyes. I am Chris Gazdick. He is Craig Graves. And this man that is hanging out with us, what did we say, man? 3 decades of policing experiences that he has been kind of characterizing and sharing with us in an amazing way the last 2 days. If you're just catching us on today's episode, you got to go back and check out these deep and involved stories that he has courageously and absolutely amazingly been willing and able, and I say willing and able to share with us. Mr. Chris Lowrance. I didn't say Lawrence once yet, have I?
No, it's Lowrance.
Lowrance. I almost messed it up. It's why I kind of just said that. I told you I would. Sorry about that, sir. He has been in law enforcement, a retired police sergeant for the 28 years, 1 month, and you were trying to count the days, but you didn't give me the days.
1 month and 7 days.
1 month and 7 days. 28 years, 1 month and 7 days. That is a lot of time, man. And so he's been sharing his experiences, and we're going to kind of go on today with this cool bike ride and wrapping up kind of the experiences that he's characterized as actually being, like the name of this show is Through a Therapist's Eyes. It should be Through a Police Officer's Eyes for these last couple days and the next few. This is the human emotional experience. Chris, I usually ask Craig. I'm going to ask you. You cool with figuring this thing out together?
Well, somebody's got to figure it out, so we might as well do it together.
We really do, right? I mean, that's a big deal that I hope comes from some of this that we're talking about, because, you know, we'll get into it probably next week, but we have a lot of societal views bumping around, and boy, does that not make it difficult to be a police officer in these days and age?
You know, I don't know that I would go back into it starting now.
Really?
I don't know that I would.
That's a big statement.
I don't know what else that I would do.
Right?
But it would be really difficult to put my feet in that water and start all over again.
We have got to change that, because it serves a vital need, as you were saying when we were talking a couple of days ago, audience, with the blue line. I mean, you cannot have society without policing. I don't think it's ever happened.
You have to have the law and order. I mean, those are the men and women who maintain the law and order for society.
Now, interesting that you make that statement. Let's stay here for just a second. Would you say that is because, in my intro, I told you they're going to be quick, guys. This is not delivery of therapy services in any way. I always want to make sure that we point that out. But would you say that's because of your experiences, or that's because of the culture now?
I would say it's the societal temperature.
Yeah.
So it's law enforcement has gotten a black eye.
Huge. Broken arm.
Yes, it's been a hard couple years.
Yeah.
I hope things get better. I know Seattle Police Department and Portland Police Departments lost a ton of officers.
Yeah.
Based on some of the things that's happened in society. I've never been to those departments. I can't speak for them.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak for the department that I work for and the agencies that I've worked with around here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a different world of policing than what it was 28 years ago. It's a different world than what it was 10 years ago.
Right.
It's really a different world than what it was probably 10 months ago.
Yeah. That's, it's funny, the rapidly evolving pace of our society as a whole, because I could say the same thing about therapy. I mean, the last year, you know how much the mental health field has changed with this pandemic? Dude, I have changed a fundamental belief. Craig's heard me talk about it several times.
I bet business has been good.
Oh, business has been very, very busy. Absolutely very, very busy, to say the least. To call it good or bad, I don't know. But
well, it's good that they're reaching out and seeking help.
It really is, isn't it? Dude, I have different races that have been in my office that I just didn't see very often. Different industries kind of as well. I see men in my practice regularly now. It's awesome. It used to be like, wow, I got a guy. It's willing to talk about these things when I started out. So my point, though, is I never would have done telephone therapy. I wouldn't do it. I refused. It was like that. It's just a way big step down. And the last year has taught me, it can be very effective.
Hey, you can Zoom it.
Well, we do a lot of video conferencing. I got Ring Central,
I think the change you're talking about, though, is not the same. People probably view therapy more now as a good thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But the way policing has changed, I'm assuming, Chris, is people are defund the police and police were bad and all this other madness that's going on out there. So I think that, both of those things may have changed, but the police officer is probably seen more in a negative light, which I believe is wrong. But because of the way the media has spun some of the events that have happened, then we are where we are.
Well, instead of saying defund the police, why don't we say fund treatment? Substance abuse it's a disease for people. It's something that they can't control. We pick up the same people over and over again at the police department. Something they can't control. Think that they choose to be an addict any more than someone chooses to be diabetic.
Right.
It's something that they have to cope with, and they haven't learned how to cope with it. So maybe defund the police isn't the answer. Maybe the answer is reallocating some funding towards therapy and treatment.
Yeah.
Other than incarceration.
Listen, and I would turn that around actually too, Chris, and see what you think about that. And then I want to move on too, because we'll circle back around to this at the end is my hope. But we did a show on defunding the police, and I kind of called it, what I see as defunding the police is being equipping the police. Yeah, funding treatment for people that you're going on scene to work with, but also funding and equipping our men and women with training and mental health and learning what Craig knows about, the breathing practices and the adrenaline, the mindset, the interdicting of your negative thoughts and all of that kind of stuff, equipping police officers to be able to operate. How about that?
Yeah, the mental health aspect of the officers, it's never been really spoken of. It's the taboo subject in law enforcement.
Chris, it drives me nuts, man. It drives me nuts. It does. So we've characterized the experiences that you've had and stuff. You are going to do an amazing thing. Tell us what you got going on here in, what did you say, 21 days or so, man? Like, what's going on here soon?
Well, the older you get, the more your joints hurt. So running got where it wasn't really my thing, and getting fat isn't my thing either. So I took to riding a bicycle and kind of followed my father-in-law. He was in his late 60s and rode avidly, rode in the mountains. He'd ride 100-mile races, just a phenomenal person. I decided that I was going to buy a bike, and I did a couple rides with Cycle North Carolina. I rode across North Carolina 2 times, met some amazing people, felt like I was the youngest kid out there, 49 and 50 years old. Older people I met were 86 years old, 70. Lord Linda from Atlanta, I'll never forget her. She's 72. She passed me on the mountain climb. Made me feel really great. I'm trying to find a lower gear on my bike, and there are none.
Right.
But I told my wife, and she's LCSW as well. She understands the aspects of mental health and the importance of it. And
it's a licensed clinical social worker. Hoorah!
That is. It's a lot of work, a lot of studying. But I told her that I kind of felt like I'd like to clear my mind, and I told her it'd be cool to go on a bicycle ride all the way across the country. And we have 4 children. The older 2 are grown. The 2 younger ones are 12 and 10. And, not many wives would really like the idea of the husband leaving for a couple months on a bicycle and letting her having to deal with everything around the house that's going on. But she said, go do it. She said, my dad had things that he wanted to do and he didn't get to do them. And go do it if you want to. So she's been 100% supportive. I couldn't be any luckier to have who I have supporting me in it. And so I decided I was going to go to Astoria, Oregon, and I'm going to ride the North American. Lord, I've lost my train of thought.
Because I was pausing because I wanted to freeze right there because 100% supportive. 100% is a pretty big thing, but community, neighbors, family. I mean, we need to support, and I just wanted to highlight that word. Being supportive of what somebody's needing, not just in policing, by the way, but for your spouse and for your family members and for your friends. The word support, I just wanted to highlight.
Right.
Yeah, so you're going out to Oregon.
Well, yeah, I've got it in my head now. It's a Trans-American Bicycle Route, and it was established in 1973, and a bunch of folks rode it in 1976 for the bicentennial celebration of our country. And back then, they rode it probably on their Sears and Roebuck 10 speeds, right. And we got a lot better gear now than what we had back then. So I've spent a little over a year working out the logistics on my trip, and I will leave May the 1st and go to Astoria, Oregon, and begin a journey all the way across the United States. And after I planned the trip, I started looking at the magnitude of it and how difficult things were going to be, and I decided that maybe it should be a little bit bigger than me. So I started researching maybe an organization that I'd like to support and bring awareness to, and I picked an organization called Blue Help. They're based out of Massachusetts. One of the co-founders, Karen Solomon, I made contact with her, told her what my plans were and that I would like to generate some revenue for her organization. And she said that she really wasn't worried about the revenue. She was more worried about the awareness that it would create. Blue Help is a nonprofit organization that was created to help the families of law enforcement officers who suicide.
Right.
You know, if they're the only working member of the family and they suicide, then the family has no income. They have no in the line of duty death benefits. They have no insurance. You know, all those things kind of cease to be. And Blue Help comes in and assists the families. And they've broadened out now. They go to all first responders, fire, EMS, telecommunicators. It's a wonderful organization and trying to bring some help to tragic situations.
And we are definitely going to have that on our show notes and highlight that on our platforms and do our part to kind of maybe be a little bit helpful to that, because it is it's a great cause. It's terribly needed. And those are some, we did a show on the complicated aspects of, dying and how we complicate all of that. When you die in the line of duty, whether it's military or whatnot, I mean, there's a lot of real complicated things, and you've turned me on to Blue Help. I'm glad that you're doing that. It is, when we do something like that, it is bigger than ourselves, for sure. Here's what I want to try to do with this bike ride. I want to fire a couple quick questions back and forth, just see what kind of comes to mind, and let's see where we're at with wrapping it up on personal experiences per se, and get into the mental health implications. So, why now? What influenced you to do this?
The bicycle ride?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people thought I lost my mind.
Yeah, I'm worried.
I think the biggest part is I'm going on a solo journey. It's by myself. There's no support vehicles. And it's kind of scary because, growing up, you can always pick up the phone and call your best friend. You can call your parents. You can call your neighbor and say, hey, I need a little bit of help with something. But on this, I have no one to call. But I hope on this trip that I'll experience the kindness of the people that I know that are still in the country, people that hike the Appalachian Trail, and they call them trail angels.
Right.
People that help you out.
Absolutely.
It's going to be an incredibly difficult journey for me.
Right.
It's going to be, you'll have high times and you'll have some low times. And that's one of the reasons I'm traveling west to east, because I'm coming home. At the end of the day, if I'm tired of it, I know the end of tomorrow I'm going to be a little bit closer to home.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. How do you see this as part of your recovery and healing?
I think just experiencing the 28 years in law enforcement, you see the bad things. People never call you when they're happy. They don't call you. Well, you might get called to a birthday party or something to turn your blue lights on for the kid, but that's about as happy as it gets.
A parade.
Or a parade. But, everything that you deal with are people in times of stress for them. This, for me, is going to be experiencing things that are not, I'm going to have the environmental stresses of, where I'm going to sleep tonight and what patch of woods, and I'm going to bathe in that creek, and, do they have the right kind of sardines at the gas station for me to eat for lunch?
Whoa.
So,
we got to do better than sardines, bro.
So, well, they have Spam as well.
Okay, there you go.
So, but, I want to see the good things. And I hope seeing the beauty of the country and meeting the people along the way that'll help bring some of that back for me.
That just rocks, brother. What do you fear about this, or what are you excited about this?
Oh, Lord, the fear? Well, there's animals bigger than I am in the Rocky Mountains, and I don't really consider myself to be on the top of the food chain.
Gotcha.
So, the sounds that you may hear in the middle of the night, and you don't know what they are, and you don't know exactly where you're at. I'm somewhere between this town and this town on the side of the road. I ducked out in the wood, and I'm wild camping. That's some of the fears. And another fear is, if I need help, who do I call?
Yeah.
So I call the police. That's who I'm going to call. And I'm going to play the professional card as, hey, man, I'm a retired cop, and I need a little bit of help.
All right, man.
So,
all right. Let me dip into this last one. What do you want out of this, and what do you think you'll realize?
I don't know that I want anything more than the experience of the beauty of nature and the things that I'll see. The people, the other cyclists, there'll be other cyclists on the trip as well. We'll cross paths. They may be going westbound. We may be stopped at the same diner to eat or something like that, or maybe we're sleeping in the same patch of the woods or the same campground, just to meet truly nice people.
Yeah.
and share your experience. I can share my stories. They can share their stories.
Well, I'm going to make you a promise. I'm going to be praying for you.
Well, I'll take all of that I can get.
Yeah. Craig, before we get into health implications, mental health implications, and stuff kind of going on, any summaries you got or questions you got burning out over there?
The only question I came up with is, where you sleeping at, but it sounds like you're going to be sleeping in a tent. That's awesome.
Well, I have a tent and I have a hammock, and I'll be in the hammock anytime I can be in the hammock because it sleeps a lot better than a tent does.
I hear you, man.
So, on these trips, a lot of people, there's campgrounds and hostels and places like that to stay. The maps that I've got from the American Cycling Association is they show areas, campgrounds along the route, places. They say Kansas is a fantastic state to travel through, that a lot of the churches there, there's so many cyclists that ride this route that many of the churches and places, they have areas set up for cyclists to stay.
Awesome.
And maybe they can come in and get a hot meal or a shower because, you don't really have the accommodations that you got at home. You can't walk down the hallway and go in the bathroom.
True.
So,
are you going to be posting updates on social media?
I am. I have a Facebook group called A Penny for Their Thoughts.
Penny for Their Thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And it also has a link on there if anyone would like to donate support. All the proceeds go, 100% of them go to Blue Help.
Okay.
Like I say, they help the families of officers that suicide, and they also provide mental health training and things of that nature for law enforcement agencies, fire and EMS and dispatchers. We never want to leave our dispatchers out.
What is that again?
The website, bluehelp.com.
No, a penny for...
A penny for their thoughts. And when I started this thing out, I said, I'd ask people, would you give me a penny to ride a bicycle a mile? Would you give me a dime to ride it for 10 miles? So if I rode 100 miles, would you donate $1? So far at a penny a mile, I've raised a little over $5,000 from people donating.
Nice.
My wife said earlier that she thought that we were creeping on up towards 10,000 because we did the Facebook gives where they match funds up to a certain point.
Oh yeah.
And so there were some that went in, and I haven't been in contact with Karen to see what the totals on that were yet. But
awesome.
when you start out, you set a goal, and I had absolutely no idea of what goal to set. So I just picked a number. I said $10,000. So
you may already be there.
But I may be close.
Through Therapist Eyes Tribe, I'm calling you out. Let's do it. Bluehelp.com. We'll have it on shoe notes.
Yep, go on look me up on the Facebook page. A Penny for Their Thoughts. It's a picture of the United States. It's got a bicycle right in the middle of it.
Okay, we'll put that on our show notes too, so it's easy for you guys to get to.
So let's jump in, and we're gonna get this much more next week. What I'm gonna try to do is take a stab. There's a cool article that I found, actually a really cool web page. You ever hear of www.policeone.com?
I've heard of that.
Yeah. Dude, they got some really
good videos,
badass stuff on there.
Mm-hmm.
They got some really, really helpful things because I evidently I didn't need it because I'm not getting to a lot of it. We're just kind of getting our thoughts and the real time presentation. But my show notes on this one, you check out on the website. It's got a lot of really cool things. I'm going to try to spit through them now with just an article that I found actually on Silence Daily that I thought was pretty cool. This just characterizes some of the actual realities of the police. And I just want to kind of spit through this and then get your basic reactions and whatnot on it, both you guys, and then we'll kind of dive deeper into this next week. So, ScienceDaily.com, they have this article, and this was the one, this was 2008, 2009 that we were talking about this. And let me see, So the article, I was like, look, without having studying the article, I hadn't even read it yet. I just popped it up. But I said to myself, I see this is from 2009. Chris, this is not 2009. It's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 20. This is 2021, if I'm correct, right?
That is correct.
This is over how long? A decade ago that we were writing this. And I'm like, my question is, I put it all in bold in the show notes. Craig, you see that there? Bold print. You see that?
Yeah.
Right? Why has not much happened since then? That'd be my question. But I'm not going to rail on a soapbox. The pressures of law enforcement put officers at risk for high blood pressure, insomnia, increased levels of destructive stress hormones, heart problems, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and suicide. University of Buffalo researchers have found through the decade of studies of police officers. I mean, those are just the physical realities. And, when I hear physical realities, you know what my brain says? Mental health.
Sure.
I mean, come on. The blending between what happens with our body we were talking about before is all about, what happens with our emotional systems, with the limbic system, and the adrenaline rushes, and the dopamine, and, all of the biochemical realities in the limbic system of our brain. It's all right there. Let me see. Officers over the age of 40 had a higher 10-year risk of coronary events compared to average national studies. 72% of female officers and 43% of male officers had higher than recommended cholesterol levels. I mean, there's real live impacts.
They make a torvastatin for that.
A what?
A torvastatin.
What is that?
That's because my cholesterol's high.
There it is, right?
There it is.
Right? Torvastatin. Craig, I don't want any of that stuff, bro. Do you? He shakes his head. No. Let me see. Colleagues are using measures of cortisol, known as stress hormones, to determine if stress associated with psychological risk factors can lead to a serious health problems such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease. I'm going to give a roundabout yes to that question. Of course it does, right?
Well, our diets aren't that great either. I mean,
donuts and coffee.
Well, and roller meat. A lot of people don't understand what roller meat is. But if you go in your Circle K or your QT gas station, it's the meat that rolls on the machine.
That's terrible.
Typically, they throw
Get some broccoli, bro.
Well, typically they throw it away at 2 a.m. So when do you go to the gas station? So you eat something that's been rolling on the roller meat machine for 6 or 7 hours.
Dear God, that sounds terrible.
That's cholesterol.
It is cholesterol. 23% of male and 25% of female officers reported more suicidal thoughts than the general population. Right? Suicide rates and completed suicides. I made the mistake earlier in my career of talking about people that were successful suicides. I'm like, I was supervising a student, and she looked at me and she said, listen, I just want to help you out. She said, Chris, you got to understand the way that sounds. And her dad had completed the act of suicide. And she taught me that's the way you refer to it. It isn't a success. People say that. It is a completion of an act of desperation in a moment, right? And that is a very real reality. Quote, unquote, from the article, intervention is necessary to help officers deal with this difficult, stressful occupation. He said, we want to educate them on how to survive 25 years of police work. They need to learn how to relax, how to think differently about the things they experience as a cop. There is such a thing as post-traumatic growth. People can grow in a positive way and be better cops and persons after they survive the trauma of police work. And this is an important message, unquote. I couldn't agree with that more. Here's my focus. All this crap about physiological aspects, goodness gracious.
Chris, can I add one thing?
Yeah,
you said 25%.
Yep. That's what they said.
What?
And this is 09.
Right, 09. But granted, that's 25% that admit it.
Yeah.
There's 25 that admit it. That's not those that have kept that dark secret, of the thoughts that's gone through their head.
Right.
And that is the ones that have admitted it. And bluehelp.com, they actually maintain on their website a counter of officers that have suicided. And that is reported suicides. It doesn't collect them all because some of them, maybe it was entered as a gun cleaning accident or something of that nature.
Right.
Just because there's a stigma attached to suicide. And it's a stigma that has to be broken. And that's one of Blue Help's biggest thing is, and one of their sayings is break the stigma.
And I might add, break the silence.
And the silence of it.
Yeah.
You have to talk about it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I've had the distinct honor and privilege to talk to men and women, in policing and other first response. And it's that in military. It's almost just a special feeling that you get being able to kind of, talk about these things. And I'll end this with a quick example. I think I've shared this on the show before. The honor that you have as a therapist and young therapists out there understand, the sheer power that we have. In what we're doing in those offices and in those scenes and in those critical incident stress debriefings. I had a guy that I was talking to, and he came because he was having a hard time at work, and he was just irritable, frustrated, and snappy, didn't understand why. And honestly, as I got to know him, he began to talk about his experiences. And he had never talked about these experiences in his entire life, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the experiences that he experienced in the bushes of Vietnam.
Sure.
This dude was 62 years old, getting ready to retire.
Well, how many people do you hear
Right.
whose grandparents, our age, or grandparents served in World War II,
Right.
but they never talked about it.
Never
Talked about it.
This
And
guy-
back then there was no talk of PTSD.
Yeah, we didn't even know then.
It was shell shock.
Yeah, get your bell rung. Get back out there, kid, kind of stuff. So he talked about it, and we walked through it. And we walked through it and the details and the gore and the horror of it for him. And you know what his success kind of really was?
Tell me.
He ended up having a picnic with his family and his friends and some people at work for the first time in his career.
Wow.
Right? That's the power that we can have when we're doing what we're doing right now and talking about it.
Sure.
That's why I get passionate about what we're doing with Through a Therapist's Eyes and in the mental health field.
Well, mental health's growing in law enforcement. I've actually heard talk at our department of implementing something. I know that they have discussed it and they're looking into it. It's something that's long needed. It's not going to be something that all the officers readily accept.
Yet.
I don't need that. It's not me. I'm
Yeah.
not crazy.
Yeah.
They hadn't picked up enough of those pieces yet. It's not heavy enough.
Right. And I say yet because breaking down stigma, stereotypes, and myths about all this stuff. And I think that we're doing that job. This has been an awesome little journey for 3 days, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to kick it back up next week. We're going to continue with Mr. Chris Lowrance, not Lawrence, right? Mr. Chris Lowrance. He's doing a great job, and I'm really appreciative. Any summary things you got for this week?
Summary things for this week?
Yeah.
Just visit that bluehelp.org website or look me up on A Penny for Their Thoughts. And, I'll give you forewarning. There'll be some creek bathing going on, but I'll try and keep that discreet.
All right, man. That's fantastic. Listen, you guys have a great weekend coming up. It is springtime across this nation and world. Wherever you're at, I hope you're enjoying it. And we're enjoying doing this show with you. And we will see you guys all next week. Take care.